Loss of view. There's, in one of the letters that were out, I'll start with the one from the Littles. They mentioned that the view from their backyard to the river, that's going to be minimized. And I have a photo here for you. I'm not exactly sure how. What view they're mentioning, but the house is the house that has the privacy fence right there. And then they have a privacy hedge. 4448 Edmond Boulevard has I'm 6'5", and the hedge is taller than me. Goes along that property. And Kathy and Scott bought this house a year later than Chris and Jesse bought their house, and they had that similar sort of hedge along the back of their lot. They did remove that hedge, so their house view is a little bit better of their backyard. But as far as the Littles' view of the river, there's really not. Even on Edmond Boulevard, you can't really see the river. You can see the river road. Let's see here. Congestion. The block, I have the map again. The block actually only has 9 houses on it currently. Adding one more would make it 10. I live in the same neighborhood, and there's 30 houses on my block. They mentioned safety for their children. We have 18 kids on our block, and there hasn't been any problems with with cars hitting our kids or anything like that. So you're still going to be very quiet and uncongested in that location. The house, I can see how the house would have probably the most concern with loss of view. The most of the view that they mentioned was in a letter that they sent was view. They hired an architect and they created a screen porch along the alley, which that also needed a variance to get approved because it was so close to the alley. But they said putting another house in that back lot would ruin the view of the back lot and also the river. But most of it is of Scott and Kathy's backyard. Scott and Kathy did not object to the variance that they needed for their screen porch looking into their backyard, which in turn kind of eroded their privacy. It's part of kind of being in the city. You have neighbors. Let's see. The last one was keeping the property and preserving the size of the lot, making it similar to the rest of the lots on Edmond. Even with it split, it's 14,000. 4454 Edmond Boulevard would still be left at 14,817. The new lot would be 5,612 square feet. Chris and Jesse's is 4,990. The Littles would be 5040, and then the neighbor just next to them is still 4,990. It's really just going to mirror what's already there. It's not going to change drastically the character of the neighborhood, because right across the street you have the same thing going on Edmond Boulevard. That lot's smaller than what the slopes Kathy and Scott will be left with. It's 10,883. The one right across the street, which was built in 51, so far after 1915, it's kind of like views are going to change. The neighborhood has changed over time. These 3 houses were built in the 40s and 50s, 1915, 1951. So the mirroring lot is actually smaller than the one that would be created. This is 5612. That's 4,800. The lot that's left for Scott and Kathy is also larger than 4 of the other lots on the same block on Edmond. There's the first couple here are larger than after the third one in. These 3, 4 are smaller. Then the one in the corner, which isn't as deep as these, is a little bit larger. This is wider. The other part of the lot size itself, if you take all of the river road into context, There were 8 out of the last 15 sales since 2014 were under 0.2 acres. So it's going to be even smaller than what they're left with now. So that's all I really wanted to mention as far as what's left over.
Okay.
It's going to be
Thank
still
you.
larger.
All right. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Yeah, you can add one thing.
Thank you. I'm the homeowner. Chris mentioned that we hadn't looked at selling the lot and that we wanted to sell just for profit now. In fact, that's correct. It's because my husband had a debilitating disease and he's now disabled for the rest of his life. He can't work. I don't know what his health future is going forward. So part of the reason is, in fact, we've invested in the house for 20 years, and I need to get as much profit from selling the house and the lot as I can, so I have the money to take care of him. He's not here today because of his illness. So I shared that reason with Chris and Jesse. They did know that reason when I talked to them. It's specifically to be able to take care of him in the future, and that's the change point. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And once again, is there anyone else? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And commissioners, we just have the one application before us, the minor subdivision. Are there any further questions, or would someone like to start us off with a motion? Commissioner Rockwell.
I could start us off with a motion. I would move to adopt staff recommendation and approve the application for minor subdivision.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minor subdivision. Commissioner Rockwell, do you have anything to add?
I think just very briefly, we see these very personal responses, which I think we all have to development, come before us. But as we look at the findings that we're required to make here, I look over these and I believe this has met those, and so that is the basis of my motion.
All right. Is there any further discussion? I will just add, this. I certainly understand some of the frustrations of the neighbors when there's a potential impact on what they see from their houses. In this case, I think we can make the case for the findings for the variance. This proposed lot size does exceed the minimum size that is required in the R1A zoning district. And the first finding we need to make relates to special circumstances. And certainly at this location, because of the curvature of the road and the fact that there are several very large lots along the river, that's really skewing that average, and that's what's necessitating the variance. The lots that are immediately to the east there are smaller or similar in size to the proposed lot. So I think we can certainly make the case for that variance. So if there's no further discussion, we have a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Freeland.
Aye.
Sweezy. Aye. Rockwell.
Aye.
Negrino.
Aye.
Lipke-Peer. Aye. Kronzer.
Aye.
6-0.
And that motion carries. That concludes our discussion on item 2. Our next item for discussion is item 6, the 2009 through 2017 Lyndale Avenue South Apartments. Staff is Ms. Dvorak. I know Commissioner Rockwell, you had wanted to discuss this item. Is there anything in particular we might ask staff to focus on?
Yeah, I think I just want to talk over the amount of the building frontage that is commercial, and also to touch on, as part of that, the density bonus. So that basically focusing on the commercial and density interaction.
Sure.
So commissioners, I will focus on that. I didn't see any hands raised of anyone in the audience that wanted to speak to this, so I will just address Commissioner
We have
Rockwell.
one person here now.
Oh, okay. One of the applications before you tonight is a variance of the FAR from 2.13 to the 2.54. This is a survey diagram that shows the existing site. So this is the Mortimer's restaurant. There is that house that is connected to that. It's all one building. Everything is intertwined. And then this is the part of the building that would be demolished. This is the proposed site plan. So this is the remaining portion of Mortimer's and then that house. There is a small addition to the back of the Mortimer's restaurant bar. And then this is the footprint of the new addition to that building. It is an addition, so it is one building. The other option, as we explained in the finding, is one could have torn down all of the building and built this new, and it's still one building. I just want to be clear that it is one building, and it does qualify for that ground floor mixed use density bonus because the commercial occupies more than 50% of the ground floor. Again, just to remind commissioners, we do not count parking towards GFA, so you can see that the size or the amount of commercial is greater than the size of the residential. So that does count. Had they torn it down and they were able to enclose these remaining spaces, it would have qualified for the second density bonus, which would have put it over their proposed FAR. But they chose to maintain the built environment by maintaining this portion of that building. And therefore, we found that to be a unique circumstance. And we did recommend approval of that variance.
All right. Are there any questions of staff? Commissioner Kronzer.
Yeah, is there any good reason why the the sidewalk along Lindale and Franklin around the corner isn't also being replaced? You see how,
Franklin?
yeah, and Lindale, kind of around the corner. The limits of work kind of carve out the sidewalk.
That would be a question for the applicant. I don't know.
Right. Are there any further questions of staff? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing on this item, and I'd like to ask the applicant to speak first. So please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Scott Nelson. I'm with DJR Architecture, the project architects for the project. And we don't really have much to add to the staff report. I would add that we were to thank Hillary for working with us throughout this process and to say that we were absolutely fine with all of the recommended conditions of approval in the staff report. And I'm certainly here to respond to any questions. Relative to the questions about the repair or replacement of the sidewalk on Franklin, if it was in bad shape, we definitely would. We are doing some renovation work to the existing Mortimer's bar, but as part of the PDR process, and we're adding some landscaping the full length of Lindale, but they didn't mention anything else about what was happening on the Franklin side.
All right. Commissioner Rockwell, question for the applicant?
Yeah. So in the process of building the new addition, was there discussion of putting commercial in any of those new frontage spaces?
No, basically because we wanted to have a reasonable amount of parking, yet block the parking with a reasonable amount of, which we think is a fairly generous amount of common amenity space for this building. Building has smaller units, so we have a really large social lounge, exercise room, and things of that nature, which also give the active use piece to the entire frontage along Lindale. And given that we've got the full commercial space next to it with Mortimer's bar, we thought that was plenty for the site.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Lupke-Peer.
Hi, Scott. So just to reiterate, you were saying that the full length of Lindale will be re-landscaped then? Because the site plan shows about 60 feet. It stops at 60 feet short
Until they didn't want to go beyond the point where we stopped our landscape, because I think there's a bus stop there, and then there's going to some view corridor or something. So we tried to get as much as we could along Lindale.
So Public Works is like, don't
Correct.
touch it? Okay, so the 60 feet there and the 30 feet along Franklin are,
Correct.
okay, thanks.
We try to match the landscaping in front of our building as far as we could that's very similar to the landscaping that's in front of the wedge currently that everyone seems to like.
Okay, and Commissioner Kranz.
Thanks, Scott. So you'd be okay replacing that sidewalk around the corner?
Sure.
Um,
It's in bad shape, but just if you want to add a condition, certainly.
Okay. And then my other question is, in the packet, you talk about fiber cement being both panel and lap siding. Have you landed on? Like
There is a section of panel. I grab my.
Of course.
Look at this. The section. This is actually. We're looking at using a panel in the areas in between the metal siding.
Okay.
I think it's what is its percentage? It's like 9% on the one elevation and 6% on the
And you're proposing to paint it dark?
correct. Yeah, as a way of breaking up the entire
But
facility.
in the reason I asked is the table off to the right. It says siding.
Correct. It should say panel.
Okay. Final question is: are you proposing to provide power to the bus shelter for heat and light?
We weren't as yet,
Yet.
but we could certainly.
All right, Commissioner Rockwell, you have another question?
Yeah, so coming back to commercial frontage. I'm I guess somewhat concerned. This is a pretty major corridor, commercial corridor right next to a community corridor, and with the density variance on top of the density bonus, I think it would be fair to ask for some commercial on the ground floor frontage of the new addition. So I wanted to say that while you have a chance to respond, let you respond. If there, I'm not an architect, but my assumption would be that some piece of that amenity space could be turned into commercial. I think something that helps establish that not just active use, but active public use along that corridor.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Commissioners. My name is Daniel Oberpriller, principal of CPM. So to address the issue of the commercial, we did investigate that a lot. I mean, I do understand that Lindale is a commercial corridor. The distance of the building is only 89 feet. So to get standard retail depth at like 60 feet or anything that would work would really impede the parking. And so if you can see the retail or the amenity space is about 15 feet long, wide. Anything, yeah, maybe just kind of. So from this point, from the corner to kind of the average of the commercial or the community space is 15 feet, and retail works at about 40 to 60. 40 would be the shallowest that you could ever do. So it just would impede a lot of the parking. That's the reason why we didn't have more commercial. We looked at it, but we will make this an active use, not just with fitness. I think this is an appropriate place for digital signage, signage that might move around in the space. So we'll look at every single measure to improve the activity as much as possible.
All right, Commissioner Vreeland. Commissioner Vreeland, we have not concluded the public hearing yet, so we can entertain your motion momentarily.
Can I just clarify with Commissioner Krauser about the sidewalk up at Franklin? So we can't touch the sidewalk for the first 30 feet around the corner. So is your effort to try to get some landscaping in front of the housing portion of it?
I'm just interested in a new sidewalk, concrete.
Oh, so new concrete, so the grade, but are you looking for more of an improvement besides just the concrete?
No, I understand that you have limitations with what Public Works is asking for as far as landscaping goes.
Yeah.
It seems odd to me that you're doing new sidewalk on two sides of the corner and not wrapping the corner of the building.
Understood.
New concrete.
Yeah, understood. Okay. But my question is, are you looking for landscaping past the 30-feet point?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any further questions of the applicant? If there are none, we can move on to some other speakers, and I know we have at least one person here to speak on this item, so please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Hokinson. I'm at 606 Ridgewood, which is one street north of Franklin Lindale. I think it was here a couple of weeks ago or a month ago when we have a new building which is going to be across the street on Lindale and Franklin, which is going to be bringing in 123 units. Now we're proposing another 75 into a neighborhood that's already congested. Not only, and so some of the things that my husband and I worry about as being longtime tenants and owners and property owners in the area is that there is a problem with parking already. On our street alone, on Franklin Avenue and Lindale, but on Ridgewood Avenue, it's single parking only, one side only. The tenants on that particular road do not have enough parking. We lost parking when there was an adjacent Lindale-Franklin acquisition. We lost parking there. They reduced parking minimums. Now we're bringing in another 75, which adds up to 200 new spaces in that corner, which is already congested. Where are they going to park? That's just it. Also, I think the 6 stories is a little egregious. I know it's probably going to have absolutely no impact because you guys have already made your decision, but I know that Don's on the other adjacent corner is going to be 5 stories with a parapet, which is going to be six stories going west on Franklin Lindale. This property is proposed to be 6 stories, a total of 6 stories, and it's going to be across building 2 different apartment buildings that are 3 stories. And those basically run both sides of the street from Franklin all the way down to Rudolph's Barbecue. Those come both sides from my street as well as Franklin Avenue. So the height is a question that we have a concern about. I don't know if anyone else is a homeowner and they have the view that we do or the lack of view. Now we have on the corner of Franklin Lindale, the west quarter, we have a 5/6-story building going in now, and that's our view. That's our whole entire southern view right out of our house. We now have an additional 6-story building coming in, which completely blocks the southern view. And I guess at the end of the day, we're really here to talk about, I'm here to talk about the fact that, again, the minimum parking, reducing it down from 37 to 34 is just to make the geometry work. But I think that we already have a problem. I think we didn't address it before with Don's building across the street. And now we have another building come in with 75 more units in an already congested gateway to Uptown. And then also, this is going to have significant impact on the rental units of the duplexes and all the existing apartments in this area. And we're bringing in more apartments. So that's all I have to say.
All right. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And commissioners, are there any further questions, or would someone like to start us off with a motion? Commissioner Vreeland.
Now move staff recommendations A through F.
All right. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second to approve staff recommendation on items A through F. Any discussion? Commissioner Magrino, then Commissioner Rockwell.
I would like to, sorry, I'm under the weather. I'd like to add a condition in the site plan review, the condition number 5, say contingent on approval from Public Works, the applicant shall run electricity to the bus shelter on the corner.
All right. We have an amendment to add a 5th condition related to adding electricity to the bus shelter per Public Works approval. We can add that condition on a voice vote. Is there a second for that condition? All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Commissioner Rockwell.
Thank you. I'm tempted to condition the variance for density bonus on commercial, but I think I'm not going to. But I just wanted to take a minute to say, I think that we need to be pushing commercial on our major commercial corridors, and we have a building across the street that's going up that also doesn't have commercial. I think this would send this project back to the drawing board. And I think in general, I don't want to do that, but I am really quite confident we have the authority to push this commercial. And so I kind of want to put out a heads up that this is something which on these commercial corridors, particularly if we're asking for density bonuses, or density variances, I think that the city has an established connection between the importance of adding commercial when we're adding density. That's why we have a density bonus related to adding commercial. And I'm like loopholes as much as the next guy, but this is essentially a loophole to get that bonus because these are two buildings next to each other with a door in between them. But I also respect and like maintaining the older buildings. I have come out in this commission, I think, is sort of someone who doesn't favor historic preservation, which is not true. I do, and I think that this is the kind of thing which we should be doing, which is connecting old buildings and new buildings and making a seamless city with our history. So I just wanted to make those comments. I am not going to offer that condition as an amendment, but I'm tempted.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Kronzer.
I would like to add a sixth condition to the site plan review, if I may, that the applicant replace the concrete sidewalk around the corner on Lindale and Franklin. And I do have a question for Commissioner Magrino.
Yes. Feel free.
Was your intent to, for the electricity to the bus shelter to provide electricity for lighting and heating?
Yes.
All right, then Commissioner Magrino.
Like it's just.
Oh, excuse me. We should vote on that condition. Or Commissioner Magrino, do you want to respond to the
Well, I guess I
question?
maybe did want to get clarification. The applicant said that Public Works wouldn't let you touch that area. Did you just mean like in regards to like doing landscaping there, or actually tearing it up? Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't mind
you can
coming up to
replace-
the microphone,
Okay.
just so that's on the record.
Mm-hmm.
No, they didn't have any objections. There's a
Okay.
limit to the landscaping.
Okay, misunderstood that. So I guess I would maybe be okay with revising my condition, as if it doesn't need to be contingent on Public Works approval if they're going to tear up the sidewalk. anyway.
Okay, that's
Okay.
I think we can do that. So Commissioner Kronzer has made a motion to add a condition related to concrete sidewalk around the corner. Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And there are none, so that motion carries. Commissioner Magrino.
Yeah, and I did just have a general comment about the commercial space. I agree, definitely in general that we should be encouraging commercial space in a spot like Lindale, which, has a lot of commercial and doesn't have a ton of vacancies. I would say in this particular spot, the way they've got sort of 70 some units, 20 some parking spaces, it will presumably let those units be a lot more affordable than by throwing in a commercial bay there and then having to maybe dig down a level for parking and making the project considerably more expensive. So I think in this particular spot, I'm a little bit more okay with not including the commercial in that location.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the original motion? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve items A through F. We've added a couple of conditions to item F, the site plan review. One,